I'm Krista, I'm an addict.
I'm Gracie, and I'm not. And welcome back to another episode. Once again, follow us on all of our socials. If you're on YouTube, they're linked below. Facebook, they're in the description. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, our YouTube channel is K-Squared along with our Facebook. But yeah.
So we talked about what kind of topic we could talk about today, and I think a good one is relationships. Like just relationships with your family, relationships with, the opposite sex. So I think I can share some personal experience with how that has grown over the years. So to first look, when looking for a partner, like you're not an addict, what are some things that you look for like in a partner?
I'd say like determination or hardworking, communication, honesty, and trust.
Those are all good things. And so as an addict, I know those things, but what ends up happening is what has been comfortable to me over the years is chaos and feeding my ego and getting instant gratification, jumping into something real quick, really just whenever it's suggested to not get into a relationship the first year of sobriety. And of course I always thought I was unique and that I could defy those odds, and I didn't, and the problem wasn't the other person. It was that I never took the time to look at myself, heal those parts of me that needed to be healed. And so I wasn't a healthy person for anyone either. And when I decided to have that mentality on it, fix yourself, was when I listened to that suggestion. And over the last year I've just kind of focused on healing myself. So now those are things that I look for in a relationship. So
I can tell from my perspective you've gotten way better at you definitely took the time. We've talked about this before, finding yourself and loving yourself before you take the step to even look or be in the position to go on dates even.
Yeah, and I think for so long drugs were the thing that made me feel good and cling to, and then so when I would get sober I would immediately look for something else, and I would
trying to fill the void.
My something else was always another person, and so now what I do is I have platonic relationships. The people that are around me are good for my mental health, or encourage me, and I can help them too. It's not just a what can they do for me type of thing.
Yeah.
And one of the the best things that I put this book right here, Codependency Workbook. My therapist had sent me that in the mail, and I realized that was a huge problem of mine, not just in a romantic relationship, but also with family and stuff. Looking back, I can always tell that when I got clean and I didn't have the drugs, I would pick out a project, it was just very unhealthy. I wanted to fix somebody because I didn't want to look at myself.
So from a family perspective, I would say relationships with your family, from the family's point of view, when you're loving somebody through addiction, like I've said before, things you have to work on would definitely be loving them from a distance, not enabling, but I feel also having compassion and trying to understand them, and then once they're clean, I feel a big part for most people would be gaining trust back, working on almost how to love them in a new way, but also really I feel most importantly would be working on yourself and working through the things you went through their addiction, because I feel there a bunch of people, it's hard for them if you never work on, obviously when you love somebody through addiction, there's a ton of emotions that come along with it. There's tons of things you go through, and you have to work through those things and forgive them for those things, and you have to forgive yourself about things too, because if you don't ever work on those, you're never going to get somewhere with somebody. You're never going to get somewhere with the addict.
Yeah, and a huge thing with you and my parents and just everybody that my support group is like the communication and comprehension. Like,
yes.
Like I would communicate, but like we weren't on the same page, or I felt like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't communicating effectively. I wasn't being really honest. So like for sure in recovery, that honesty is just vital in mending relationships with your family and friends. I think like when I get overwhelmed or I need help, or it's like anything, if I feel like I've let somebody down, like I just communicate with them and I tell them. And so far, like that has been very effective in healing, and then gaining the trust, because when I'm honest, like before, if like I was going through something and say my feelings were hurt from a relationship, a romantic relationship, and I might be projecting like that turmoil I had inside of me like onto my family, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it would come out like I was just being like chaotic or angry. So now when I'm going through certain things, I am able to like just let you guys know like what's going on. That way you guys can hold me accountable on like, all right, you need to get out of your head. And
then in times we can be there for you and know how to be there for you as well.
Yeah. And it's just all about like a little give and take, I think. And that's a huge thing for addicts is I was so selfish in addiction that I didn't care how anybody else was feeling. Like it was all about me, very ego-centered, self-indulged, and so now I find myself like asking about you guys, like, hey, did you have a good day? Like trying to be there for you. And more than I'm able to do that, I think that you guys, it just builds the trust.
I would say even through recovery, there's things that not only trigger the addict, but also their family and any person involved. I would say for the family side of it, personally, like, especially for me, things that would trigger me to, like, get my mind racing, I guess, would be, like, if I text you and you don't respond for a long time. Because I feel like when you're in active addiction, there were many times when you obviously wouldn't respond. Or, I mean, even, like, if I don't hear from you for a couple days, that's very, like I usually am like, that's weird, like, and I try to make sure to text you, when, even if, obviously at times like that, life just gets busy, and then another one I would say is huge is, like, when you're late to, like, pick me up or just late to an event is that's old behavior that you used to do, which those aren't even necessarily things, like, those are just, like, everyday things that happens to anybody, but for the family, things like that can be really triggering still.
Because we put you through so much trauma that it is. And I think from, like, my point of view of that, like, things that triggers me, like, I have to be really mindful of certain people that trigger me, and one thing, like, when I'm dealing with family, like, I create these scenarios in my head that, like, aren't even real. So, I have to, like, put things in perspective and keep reality where it is, because I can make something really negative before it even happens. Like, for instance, like, if I wanted to take some time and, like, go do something for myself or hang out with friends, like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to ask my parents to watch them because they're probably busy, they're too tired, they don't want to, and I'm already putting these, like, expectations on them to, like, say no to me.
Even asked to know what they're doing. Yeah.
And so I don't do that anymore. I just, if I want to say something, I'm assertive and speak on it. And if it doesn't go the way that I had planned, then you know what? Things don't go the way I planned.
Right. Then you make other plans.
Yeah. And that's just an example. I mean, but and another, like, relationship triggers, like, as far as unhealthy things that have happened to me in the past, like, I have to be really careful about recognizing those things. Like, even with Dylan, with platonic friendships, somebody might say something, like, or even, like, smells or action, there's lots of different things that, like, my friends will do, and it'll, like, trigger me to, like, go in this, like, unhealthy coping ways, and I look like a complete psycho sometimes, or I appear to be angry and it's not them. Like what we talked about projecting earlier, like I have to, the self-awareness is just really huge in being healthy. Like that stuff hasn't gone away immediately. Like those coping skills are still there, the negative ones. So like when I recognize that, hey, I'm about to do this, like it's probably not the best thing. Like I'm grateful that I have that like thought process now, when I used to not at all. There was no like pause. And I just try to act in a different way. But it can also be exhausting because like it's like this last year, and that's what, like it's recommended not to get in a relationship because I'm going through all this stuff. Like I don't need a distraction from trying to have a healthy future.
And I think you've realized the truth behind that this go around.
Yeah, like that should be mandatory. Like, I mean, it's suggested people do what they want to do, but like not clinging on to someone, because ultimately, like I have tried to build my relationship with my higher power over the last year, and I've hung out with people, and I can look back even like then and see how I was distracted from I recognize that and I stopped doing it because like I'm trying to build that relationship with my actual higher power rather than making this person like my, because another big thing is like if I've been in a relationship with another addict and like if they fell off, it wasn't too long behind that I had fallen off, or vice versa. I've been the negative one in the situation too. And it's just really important to have your own recovery, build your foundation.
I think from the family's point of view on that, like when they say don't get in a relationship, I think that is a huge thing, especially with other addicts, because you have to like work on yourself, be stable with yourself, and make sure that if your partner were to slip, that you're strong enough in yourself that you can like help them or just focus on yourself and be able to keep going, And I think also like another huge trigger for the family can be new relationships, like even friendships or, actual like romantic relationships, because it's always scary when like if you were to bring someone new around.
Yeah. And another huge thing about that is like, I've done harm and damage to the people that were there for me. And I think this time around I have found it very important to mend those relationships and give energy to those things, like those people that were there for me through everything, like how to make that better and that stronger, and to help you guys like be able to heal too, rather than jumping into a relationship with another person and giving them any energy that is not deserved. You know what I mean? Like the people that deserve the attention and the healing are the ones that are my support system, So I think the most important relationship in recovery, and it sounds so cliche because it's always talked about, but it really is, I've learned is the most important relationship with yourself. Just to like being on like a journey of self-discovery and self-awareness, and just being kind to yourself. Like I was always told like you have to get to know yourself, and I heard that, but it never like sunk in, and I never applied it. Like I would say like I do love myself, but really I didn't. Like when I started to like dig a little deeper, I realized for a lot of my life I was doing everything that I did to like please someone else, if my parents thought I should do this and this, like, and I felt a different way, like I would do what they wanted me to do because I thought that was the right thing, because like my thinking process was like distorted. Like I thought that I couldn't make decisions on my own, and so and in relationships, like I always did what I thought my partner, and that's the codependency. So now I just like recognize my own wants and needs, and I put those first when it comes to like major life decisions. I think it's really important to like have goals and reach them, because I think when you recognize your progress in recovery and like the goals that you're reaching, like that helps keep sobriety like number one priority.
I feel like I've really realized through your recovery, like, how big of a factor relationships plays into recovery, like any relationship. I mean, I feel like, especially like with yourself, I've seen so much growth in you finding yourself and, you know, getting that part of your relationship set. And then also like with like romantic relationships, I mean, you did have like huge codependency issues prior. And I mean, honestly, anytime you would come home from rehab, before I would even see you come home, you're in a new relationship with a guy.
I mean, I came back from rehab pregnant 10 years ago. Like, clearly my sobriety was not my first, and I'm so grateful for my son, but I obviously was not focused. And, like, I think that when you were a broken person, when I was a broken person, like, I just kept thinking, like, this is going to fix me. This is going to fix me. This is going to fix it. Like, this ideal, like, just living in like a fairy tale almost, like this is gonna make everything right. And like when I started to realize, like, and this is just people in general, I don't think like addicts, like I can only change myself to be happy, you know, like I can only, and that was like my ultimate goal, was like just to find peace and like have a still mind, like a quiet mind. And when I started doing the work, like the internal work, like that's when all that stuff happened. So do you think that, you know, like I keep saying, like an addict goes through all this stuff, but also, like when I just said, like I feel like all people kind of experience those. Have you seen or yourself experienced like those type of things?
Absolutely, and honestly, part of me hates the word like addicted or addict or addiction, because I think personally, for one, we've talked about this, like addiction doesn't discriminate. So, you know, anybody can be an addict, and anybody, you can become addicted to anything. Like I almost hate that term, because there are people who are addicted to love. There are people that are addicted to money. There's people that are addicted to their phones. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you can be addicted to anything. So honestly, I almost hate that term. But yes, I agree that, and honestly, like, I mean, I've been to a couple like meetings with you and stuff, and I have learned through your recovery too. There's so many things that, like life lessons through recovery, that applies to everyone.
Are you talking about that meeting we went to? We went to a meeting when we went on vacation in Florida. I was kind of nervous to go like outside of my comfort zone. So you went with me to an AA meeting down in Panama, and like it was like a perfect meeting for you to sit in on and like hear that.
I loved it. It really was a great experience for me. I mean, there were just life lessons that you learned that, I mean, just like this stuff we're talking about today, I feel like this is very, like, general knowledge that applies to anybody. Like, yes, it's a little different, like, coming out, like, getting into recovery, getting into relationships, but just in general, like, you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else, or, you know, but yes, that meeting we went to was, I mean, it opened my eyes to a lot of things, honestly.
And, like, I was real grateful that you were willing to do that, like, to see. Like, my family's always been supportive of, like, and trying to educate themselves on, like, things that we go through. And I think that's, I mean, you can speak on that part, but I think it's really important to be able to connect on those struggles, like, to be able to understand.
Yeah, because I think, like, when you love an addict, you go through it with them, but you go through it with them from a different perspective. So, like, there's a lot of things, you know, that I guess more so like situations you deal with through them, but you don't always, it's also important, and I think a huge thing that can help families love an addict is walking in their shoes. Yeah. And so doing those things help you realize, I mean, going to those things, I mean, obviously there's other addicts there that share their stories, and it almost makes you realize, like, as a family member, you're not alone, and like, you know that, but like, when you sit there and listen to other people's stories, it's almost like comforting, I guess, but it also just helps you like realize on a deeper level what you go through.
Yeah. And like the final thing that I'm going to say about like some of the things that I've learned is like, I try not to live in the mindset of like a destination, and what I mean by that is like, you know, a destination of like happiness is what I mean. Like, I'll be happy if I find this perfect relationship. I'll be happy if I feel like a good mom. I'll be happy if I have a house, blah, blah, like just being happy and okay with like what's going on right now. That has been like a game changer for me, because like I'm not waiting for something. Like I can sit and enjoy like the things that are happening around me right now. And because like worrying about what's going on or what I don't have like creates anxiety and stress that is not needed. So ultimately I think that I create all of the issues that I have. And so now I'm just unlearning like unhealthy coping skills and learning healthy ways. And while I've been doing that, like I'm attracting better things, like better people for me right now. Like I'm chasing goals rather than like a false happiness. So obviously there is like lots more to relationships, codependency, and
I think that's a huge topic.
Yeah, and a lot of this is just personal experience, opinions, but it's just stuff I've learned throughout the years of what not to do and what to do. So
yeah, and once again, I think we said this, but if you guys have any topics you want us to talk about, please let us know, because it's also like when you like I guess live it in a way, it's harder for you to like come up with topics that are like normal to us, whereas like to other people you might wonder these things, and we don't take offense to anything you ask us. Like we would love if you guys would give us like suggestions on what to talk about, or if you have any questions we would love to answer. We don't have to say you ask them, but just like try to discuss them. And we still, if you want to reach out because you want to be a guest, we would love to have you, so please let us know. Or if there's anybody you think you would like for us to have, please let us know.
And recently we have connected with some people that are involved in recovery through a mutual friend, and I'm really excited to see how that turns out, because they're going to be a guest, and we're going to try to do it remotely, like over video, so we'll see how that works.
Yeah, we have a lot of good things coming. We have a lot of plans, so please stick with us. But we appreciate you listening as always, and thank you for your support. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm going to keep saying that. And you know what? I feel like we keep saying 1,000 subscribers. Like that sounds really far-fetched to everybody listening, but it's not. We have half of that on Facebook. So I'm just saying, if all of y'all went to subscribe to our YouTube channel, we'd be halfway there. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you soon.
See you next time.
Bye.